Need a new blush on, run out of eyeliner or lipstick? High chances are that you'll head over to Nykaa.com to purchase it. From Nivea to NARS and Hair and Care to Huda Beauty, Nykaa has emerged as a leading beauty and cosmetics retailer in the country. And the woman who's built this empire and behind this success story is none other than Falguni Nayar. She now joins in to tell us more about this highly profit-making business and how she's brought the world of beauty closer to customers and never ceases to surprise. Falguni, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us on ET Now. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I'm very curious to know a little bit more about the journey of the company, how things began at the helm of financial services, and then you completely deviated and plunged into the world of beauty, which has been such a success story.
Thank you, Avanne. As you are aware, I was itching to be an entrepreneur, and I had this deadline in my mind that before I turn 50, I must experience entrepreneurship and commit my next decade to entrepreneurship. And I'm so glad I did. So with that in mind, I was convinced that the multi-brand retailer for beauty was an industry that was not built out well in India, and that was a space available. And usually nascent businesses are hard to handle in a diverse country like India. And that's where the digital came in. I think that was the time, early 2000, I'd seen, customers gravitating towards digital. And I thought that digital was a good way to educate the customer. And also in later years, e-commerce picked up. So, servicing the customers throughout the country through a digital platform that, that satisfies all their beauty needs is what I went out to build. And we're so glad we did that, because today we were sure that there was a need. I used to joke about it that if I'm performing a ballet, God, let it be at least Mumbai and not Timbuktu. And I'm so happy that the Indian customers were ready to embrace beauty. And as we did more towards the industry, we saw the market grow many fold. So just happy to be where we are today, having helped build an industry that women are so fond of.
Oh yes, indeed. It's everyone's go-to platform for beauty. And Falguni, I can't help but ask, the pandemic has definitely impacted a lot of businesses across various spheres. How badly was the beauty industry impacted? Because there was a serious disruption when it came to the supply side. Malls, shopping complexes, all of them were closed. Deliveries as well were few and far between with essential items. How was it for the beauty industry?
So when the lockdown first came into play, we were really quite worried. It was towards the end of March, and things started locking down. People started working from home. We had also got set up to work from home. But at the first thought of like zero revenue, it was almost scary, because we'd been growing on a steady growth path for 8 years, where we were initially growing more than 100% year on year, and even in more recent years, our growth has been very steady at about 50-60% year on year growth. So with that kind of growth momentum, suddenly to face the reality of a lockdown was hard. But I think we did some interesting things. We used personalization and pivoted our store to what we call an essential only store. And even I want to credit the government that they wanted the supply chain to keep moving, and they kept doing things during early lockdown to allow the supply chain, operational throughout the country. So with that, I think in April itself, we were at what we call as 35% of business as usual. We call the Feb number as business as usual, because that was the last, full month that we had available to benchmark. And by May, we were at like 65% of business as usual, and by June, almost 97% of business as usual on an omni-channel basis. And as far as the stores and malls, like they were a little late to start operating. However, we are really happy that by October, even our cost is the retail footfall and stores in the sales in the store, and even those are back to more than February levels. So we've seen a huge momentum. I think the nature of demand shifted initially to more to skincare and personal care, but in more recent time, even makeup is back. So I think we've seen that beauty is something that Indian consumer is quite. I think whatever we've done in the country, the demand is quite robust in every industry. I hear that the demand is quite robust at the moment. So be it beauty, be it fashion. I even hear about some of the other industries, like automobile and cement. I think the demand is coming back. So we're just all very happy to be surprised by how much resistance our economy has shown, resilience economy has shown.
Now, Falguni, while retailing global brands as well as very prominent Indian brands, Nykaa has gone ahead and built its own label brands as well. There's Nykaa Cosmetics, Nykaa Naturals, K Beauty. What is the thinking behind this strategy, and how have some of the brands within the company fared?
So I think in a digital world, we are very close to our consumers. We are very close to a lot of data and information. And we also, based on our knowledge of the industry, we saw many gaps in the market that were not very well filled through availability of a lot of brands. So I think initial thought of private label came in to want to fill those gaps. We launched nail colors because the availability of nail colors in the country was pathetic in 2012, 2013, in those early days. And so I think
About 20 minutes more.
after that we went into this whole bath and body range of products, and then now of course we have full-fledged range of cosmetics, which is really high quality cosmetics at a very affordable price, but it meets the requirement of Indian women. If you look at our foundation, the number of shades are massive. Or same thing with lipstick, we give so much variety to our consumers. We create a brand that is for every consumer in the country.
Oh, yes, indeed it is. A number of very prominent brands as well. Falguni, yeah, I'm curious to understand the strategy behind the omni-channel presence that the company has. Do you think that that's been viable during a time such as a pandemic and a crisis? And will you now look at a more digital transformation, or do you think that this omni-channel strategy has stood you in good stead and that you'd continue?
So we've been a digital first company, and we began with digital and went into physical retail because we did believe that our consumers wanted to experience in an omni-channel way. I think we manage our costs very well during pandemic, and that is in spite of not letting go of a single staff, not even in our stores. So we actually, in the initial lockdown phase, we supported our physical retail store staff with a lot of education and training. And then soon after, when the malls were not open, but e-commerce was working, we actually enabled our stores to be enabled through hyperlocal deliveries. And we use our store inventory and store staff to deliver to consumers closer to home, because in the early days, supply chain was harder. And I think since then now, there are a lot of footfalls in the malls, and our stores have seen pretty good, customer engagement levels. And I think we negotiated, during the lockdown, we negotiated our rentals in such a way that, to our surprise, at the store level, profitability was intact even during early days of September, October. And I think Nykaa has, of course, in physical retail, the costs are higher, and to that extent, we are yet to achieve full break even of the business, but we are very close to that. So I think we do believe that it was the right strategy. The mix needs to be correct, and we will continue to do that in the future.
Okay, indeed, that's been very encouraging to see that even the physical stores have performed well. But given that you're now a veteran in the beauty industry, I just want to understand what the outlook is at a time when everyone has had to pivot, re strategize, and some even discontinue their operations completely. Do you think that it's a case of survival of the fittest within the beauty industry as well? That the strong brands will always bounce back because customers will stick to them, and that perhaps some of the smaller ones will find it difficult to survive, let alone thrive?
I would say that, agile companies will do very well in the current environment. And if you look at agility, we are able to straddle from skincare, I mean, makeup to skincare, and now to more natural brands, which is where the trend is now. We also are bringing a lot of international brands to our customers. I don't know if you noticed, but more recently we've launched excellent brands like Charlotte Tilbury and Murad, and a number of Lime Crime. So a lot of sought after brands globally are being launched on our platform in India. And as consumers travel less abroad, they are obviously embracing availability of these brands here. Earlier, we had also launched Huda. And our stores tend to be a place where customer can come and try these brands. So that's why I think we've been able to build many of these luxury brands in the country. So through the lockdown, we saw that our business in premium and luxury goods increased actually, and we are now running at almost 20% of our business tends to be our luxury goods. And that is happening because we have created an environment where customers are able to trust us. There's a lot of authenticity, like we only sell genuine products. So with authenticity and trial and education, I think consumer is pretty much leaning on Nykaa for all their premium needs. So I think it's a question of positioning it in a positioning vis-a-vis the consumer need, and I think Nykaa has been able to do that well. And to answer your question, yes, there are a lot of domestic brands also coming up and again occupying a space that was important to the consumer. And we've seen a lot of growth of Indian brands, Indian owned and managed brands that are coming up. Many of them are direct to consumer brands and they're doing very, very well. So I think consumer has a lot of choice now, from best of global brands to be available to Nykaa's own labels to we also brought them a celebrity brand with Katrina Kaif, K Beauty. So there's a lot of choice that the customer has, and they're able to embrace what they need.
Yeah, and as I said, from Nivea to NARS, hair and care to Huda Beauty, the choices are endless. But I want to understand how consumer behavior as well has evolved or changed during this pandemic. You spoke about that focus on personal care, skin care. Now it's back to makeup. But are our customers now more price sensitive? Do they care a lot more about quality? Has there been revenge buying or any particular categories like lipstick or eye makeup that has performed better? What have been the shift in consumer trends?
I think everyone wants to stay very safe during this time. So clearly they're ready to pay a premium for high quality. So they're definitely leaning towards brands that they trust. I wouldn't say that they are necessarily imported or expensive brands, but the brands that have trust, the consumer trust in them, are the ones that consumers are consuming. Within that, of course, there are some trends. Like, I think we are also clearly seeing dominance of there's a slight shift. Lips is a very big category and accounts for a large percentage of the market. But, with the mask, we've seen some shift away from lips to the category of eyes, and, face and nails, of course, grew a lot because consumers had more time to play around with. So I think we are definitely seeing a slight change in trends, but overall, it's not massive. I think beauty industry anyway is characterized by, there's almost 30% new launches every year. So beauty industry is characterized by bringing in new every year and letting go. And it also has trends where it moves from, from creams to serums. And, there's always the new formats that the beauty companies bring to the consumer. So there were sheet masks and there are peel off masks. So, the function is similar, but, the way the beauty therapy is rendered is a little different. And I think consumers are embracing all of that.
And the company also, as you said, you went hyper local, you pivoted your strategy quite a bit. What has been the rethinking in terms of Nykaa's growth strategy? What has the lockdown or the pandemic taught you by way of lessons for learning?
What dynamic I said earlier, it taught us to be very agile. But having said that, I think Nykaa had already put in a lot of growth engines in place. So if you remember, we had launched our fashion business almost 3 years ago, and over the last 2 years, we've scaled it up. During the pandemic, we saw a huge growth in our fashion business, which has grown 400% year on year. We, in fact, onboarded more than 250 brands. Some of the best labels are all coming onto our platform now, and fashion has become a very serious business for us, which will have a very dominant share in our overall business. And within fashion also, like you're aware, we launch our own brands. Like we have a lingerie brand called Naked. We've also launched a Western wear, which is called 20 dresses. So there's a lot of, again, it's an offering based on what we thought market needed. So it's always something unique. Our Naked as a lingerie label is a very, very high quality brand. You should experience, I mean, you should just look at it and see what a great quality we are bringing to the consumer. And that, based on quality, we remain quite convinced that it will do well.
Now, within the beauty and cosmetic space, Nykaa does have a number of competitors as well, but you've managed to hold out, retain market share. What helps Nykaa maintain that competitive edge? Are you worried about competition in fashion as well as in beauty?
As a company, I've always prided ourselves in the fact that we're very consumer centric. We understand the consumer need, and we are always we bring a lot of passion to fulfill that consumer need. And with so much of passion, to fulfill the consumer need, maybe content side, maybe on education side, also on the experience, on the app experience side, or even product experience side. We do so much that we feel that that puts us ahead of competition. And in that sense, then we don't need to worry so much and we can continue to dominate. So that's how we are even currently building. We're trying to further fulfill consumer need in a very meaningful way and giving them what they need. With that, there is going to be greater focus on additional categories on our website. I think hair will continue to grow, wellness will continue to grow. We are building the fragrance category to be a big, a big category on our website. It's always been in our stores a big category. So there's a lot we are doing to continue to delight the customer. I also
Okay, fair enough. And, Falguni, right, go ahead.
So we've also launched Nykaa Man, which is our app for men's grooming needs, and with that we realize that men embrace consumption more horizontal than women do. Women like buying at special stores, like a store for beauty, store for fashion. So I think our men's portal is going to be a little more horizontal, offering like everyday essentials for men, which include tech accessories, which include some other accessory needs. So that's the other business model that we're building for.
Okay. So what happens to expansion plans now? Do you remain on track? And I think everyone's very curious to know as well. What are the plans when it comes for the public listing of the company? Are they on track? What's the timeline that you're looking at?
Yeah, so we've had a great year in spite of COVID this year. Our growth momentum continues, our profitability improvement and momentum continues. I think our profitability will grow multifold because of the scale advantage that we are achieving, and because of all that, we remain on our plans as usual for IPO. At some point in future, we will go for a public listing, and we are getting more ready for that. And I think in terms of the business, we have, like I already talked about, we have three big businesses, which is beauty, fashion, and Nykaa Man, which is our men's offering. And within that itself, we are building additional brands. And then from there are other categories that interest us. And we are going to focus on some more of those categories, like wellness. We may have a more deeper offering within wellness and a couple of other categories that we may like.
So you said sometime in the near future. Do you want to be more specific in terms of that timeline for the public listing?
No, at the moment it's difficult to say, but I think hopefully in another 6-8 months we'll have a bigger insight into the direction and time. At the moment, all I can say is we're getting the company more ready and stronger and bigger and stronger to be worthy of a public listing.
Okay, and we can't wait for that. And Falguni, there's been a credible list of investors as well into Nykaa, the latest being Fidelity. What have the funds been used towards, and are you in talks with any other investors?
So I think we are really delighted to have an investor like Fidelity in our cap table, but it was a secondary offering and not a primary. It gave exit to some of the early investors. It gave partial exit to some early investors, as well as some of our employees' ESOPs were liquidated as part of that round. Earlier in the year, we had raised 165 crores. It was just around the COVID environment, around March end. So we wanted to be sure that we had enough money should the COVID adversities be larger. But we did not needed that much investment money because we are profitable. And but yeah, it's always good to have enough, as you say, enough dry powder in your so in that sense, we have done some amount of fundraise. I think so far Nykaa's raised all of under 600 crores. It's a small amount of fundraise we've done, and we've come so far. And we continue to be very frugal towards consumption of our capital.
So you said you're in a very comfortable financial position. Walk us through the consolidated revenues for the financial year. What is the outlook when it comes to your profits, revenues in terms of numbers and year-on-year growth?
I just want to remind, we don't like to give forward-looking statements, but I think I want to just remind you that our net revenue for the year ended March 2020 was 1,850 crores, and we are on a clear path to deliver like we had given a guidance of 40-50% year-on-year growth. We think it will be that or slightly more in spite of adversity that we faced in the first couple of months. So I think the overall there is a growth momentum in the business, and I can say that it's got more accelerated because of the benefits. I think e-commerce has been a big beneficiary of the lockdown in some ways because we could continue to operate when other forms of retail found adverse circumstances. So I think e-commerce has been a big beneficiary of COVID in a global sense. Globally this has happened because people are liking delivery of the products in their homes, convenience of the delivery. So I think that's what we are seeing. So we do believe that our growth momentum is going to only accelerate. So happy about that. And just trying to build the company for the long run. Another quick insight I can give you. Financial insight I can give you is that we did see the cost of customer acquisition come down very significantly during these times because of, again, consumers are very open to now embracing e-commerce, So the cost of customer acquisition has come down substantially, and that was a big benefit for the full year. However, going forward, I'm sure more and more companies are going to come into the digital, they're going to have their digital footprint and stuff like that. So we do believe that the gains in cost of customer acquisition may be short-lived and it may go up again for the next year.
Okay. The digital and personal care market in India, that's estimated to grow at about 6,000 crores according to reports, and the Indian cosmetic market as well is seen growing to a very sizable $20 billion CAGR of 25% by 2025. How do you see the Indian beauty industry growing, and how do you see Nykaa evolving over the next decade?
I think the beauty about the beauty industry is that it is growing throughout the world. So I think the beauty and personal care as a category is growing even in developed markets at a very healthy pace. So it's a good industry at the moment. The consumer need for the beauty products is growing, even in developed markets of US and Europe and even in Asia. So I think it's seen a huge growth momentum, and India will also see that. So I don't have any doubt. And sometimes, it's a very fragmented industry with a lot of brands. And sometimes the availability of a lot of brands, sometimes supply determines the demand growth also. So with the availability of a lot of unique brands which satisfy different consumer needs, you will see the industry grow faster. And that's where the role of a retailer comes in, who allows and facilitates many of the brands to succeed by providing a platform where these brands can list. So what we are happy about is that because of Nykaa's distribution platform, so many brands today feel empowered to come and build their, their own labels that they can retail on Nykaa. So Nykaa has become a very important part of a consumer brand, which is thinking of trying to build a business for India. And also international brands are also increasingly wanting to come into India because Nykaa has a strong platform, which is Omni-channel that can be offered to them. So our business is allowing for a lot of brands to feel better and stronger about their success in India. And I think being an enabler like that to allow brands to grow and consumers to experience those brands has been our biggest satisfaction.
Oh, it certainly must be. And, Falguni, you've clearly proved that there's no obstacle that you can't cross after being, emerged in the banking arena. You shifted and you had your second innings in your career, if you will. How difficult was that transition? And if you could just tell us a little bit more about what that meant for you as a personal journey.
So I was very ready for an entrepreneurial journey. And all I can say is that when someone is leaving a very cushy job, which one has invested in and cultivated through the years, and when you're leaving that behind and going into an industry where actually I did not know anything about retail and I didn't know anything about beauty, I didn't know technology, there's so much I didn't know. So one has to be very open-minded, one has to be ready to learn. from the universe, and I think universe is ready to teach you. The second is one has to have a very simple approach to solving problems, very simple common sense approach to solving problems instead of getting bogged down by information and data and what other companies have done. And I think one can focus on a simple consumer problem and be passionate about solving it using technology. That's a lot to say, and you do succeed with that approach. And finally, all I can say is that an entrepreneurial journey, especially in the early days, is like a roller coaster ride, and you will go through ups and downs, and there'll be days when you'll be holding your head and saying, now where do I go from here? And it's at that point that you don't really give up on it, and you believe in your long-term conviction, and you continue to build. And I think that's all I can say. And I think it's always interesting to experience an entrepreneurial journey, and it's always worth it and well worth it because there's a lot of learning, but you need to have a mindset to be able to deal with it.
Okay, and what about advice on making the right pitch? There's so many entrepreneurs, there's so many startups out there. What would be your call and your word of advice here?
On the pitch to the investors, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. So I think a lot of, I feel that a lot of people work towards trying to assume that if there is a large market size, the business will do well. But I do believe in understanding, the unit economics of the business, and given the cost structure and unit economics of a business, inherent unit economics, not assuming a very small scale, but assuming a reasonable scale of business, can the unit economics fall into place for it to be a worthwhile and sustainable business. So I find that once you can achieve that understanding for your business, that at what scale and size you can have the right unit economics, and if you have that understanding, and then anyway, even investors know the size of the market. So once you have that understanding and you can facilitate that to the investors, they become, they have more conviction to back your business, and then they are there and really supporting your strategies for growth because they know the path, and they know how they'll see the path emerge.
Okay, and Falguni, before you go, what's better than having one woman leading a business? It's two. You also have Adwaita Nayar, your daughter. What has that relationship been like working together with her?
So Adwaita joined the business in very early phase. I think she was involved with me in 2012 itself, trying to, in those early days when we used to draw wireframes and conceptualize the business, she was very much by my side. She just finished her undergrad and she was here for a long summer. And I think very soon, within a year, she came and joined Nykaa full time. And she's been part of a very early journey where she saw and was part of our struggles to make this into a, to see it to some, to see it on a treadmill where we can then hope to be on a finishing line, so touch the finishing line. So I think she's really learned and experienced a lot from the business. And today I'm really proud to see her as a very, very successful entrepreneur herself. She's built the fashion business from scratch at Nykaa, and its entire credit goes to her, including the private labels like Naked, which are very much her conceptualization and her detail-oriented approach to execution and creating and building a brand. So I credit her with a lot of that. In between, she also did physical retail. So it's been good to have her by my side and learning and building this business to be a stronger business. And as you are aware, more recently, even Anchit, my son, has joined the business about 2 years ago. He left Morgan Stanley and he's joined the business. So he's currently building our physical retail business, and more recently he's taken over as a chief marketing officer. So he's also learning to manage such a high-paced digital business.
It's been a pleasure having you on board. Thank you so much for taking time out, Falguni, and giving us a glimpse as to how your business works, your entrepreneurial journey, and wishing you all the very best for the future.
Thank you very much, Avanne, and it was really my pleasure.